The arrival of the overlords. The morning sky over Earth was calm when the end of everything began. In an instant, the stars above shimmered, warping unnaturally, as if reality itself was being torn apart. Then the sky darkened, blotted out by massive alien vessels descending from the rifts that had opened across the heavens. Their monolithic forms stretched for miles, casting long shadows over Earth's continents. Across the world, satellites detected gravitational distortions, power surges, and unknown energy signatures, things that should not have been possible under conventional physics. Humanity had long speculated about first contact. Some believed it would be diplomatic. Others feared an invasion. But no one had predicted this, a demand for submission. Inside Earth Defense Command, EDZ, located in a top-secret underground facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Marcus Steele stood rigid, eyes fixed on the live feeds of the alien armada hovering above Earth. Hundreds of ships, larger than cities, loomed in orbit, dwarfing anything humanity had ever built. His comms officer, Lieutenant Sarah Voss, swallowed hard. "Sir, the transmission is coming through. It's broadcasting on all frequencies." Steele took a deep breath. "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, revealing a creature both nightmarish and majestic. Its form was an amalgamation of mantis-like limbs and a feline's sleek musculature, armored in chitinous plating that gleamed under artificial lighting. 6 eyes glowed with an eerie violet hue, and its mandibles twitched as it spoke. "People of Earth," the creature's voice rumbled, an unnatural mix of mechanical distortion and guttural resonance, rattling the very walls of the command center. "We are the Voral Dominion, rulers of 13,000 star systems and masters of countless species. We have watched your world for centuries, observing your primitive growth. And now, we deem you worthy." The words carried an undertone of mocking amusement. "You will surrender half of your planet's resources, including water, minerals, and biological materials. Additionally, 30% of your population will be conscripted into our expansion fleets. You have 24 Earth hours to comply." Resistance is. The alien's mandibles clicked in a manner eerily similar to laughter. Inadvisable. A heavy silence filled the command center. The weight of those words hung over every officer, every soldier, every analyst. They weren't asking for negotiation. They weren't offering peace. This was a demand for absolute submission. General Steele's fists clenched behind his back. Earth had faced wars, famines, nuclear crises, and disasters. Humanity had battled against extinction countless times, but never against something so vast, so overwhelming. His second-in-command, Colonel Adam Reeves, broke the silence. "Sir, what do we do?" Steele's face remained unreadable. He turned toward the holographic projection of Earth's World Council, where the leaders of every nation were already gathering in a virtual conference. "We discuss our options, Colonel, because there was no way in hell humanity was going to surrender. The Council's debate, fight or submit." Within 1 hour, the leaders of Earth's most powerful nations were assembled in a secure digital meeting room. Their faces flickered as holographic projections, their expressions a mix of fear, determination, and barely restrained fury. "Surrender is not an option," declared President Eleanor Carter of the United Earth Federation. "But neither is suicide," countered Prime Minister Wei Zheng of the Asian Alliance. "We have no idea what they are capable of. If we refuse, they may simply wipe us out." The Russian commander, General Ivan Sokolov, scoffed. "We do not bow to threats. Humanity has fought impossible wars before. This will be no different." The debate raged on. Should Earth attempt diplomacy? Could they stall for time? Or should they fight back immediately? And then a voice cut through the noise. "They're bluffing." The room went silent. Dr. Elena Graves, one of Earth's leading xenobiologists, stood with her arms crossed. A woman of sharp intellect and colder logic, she had been analyzing the alien fleet's movements and power readings since the moment they appeared. "Explain, Dr. Graves. President Carter urged. Graves swiped across her holo-tablet, pulling up detailed scans of the alien ships. Look at their fleet configuration. Their formation is designed for intimidation, not efficiency, and their demand for biological materials. That suggests desperation, not confidence. She zoomed in on energy readings. These ships are big, but their power output doesn't match their size. They're using holographic projections to make themselves look more massive than they are. Their fleet is designed to scare us into compliance before we realize we have a fighting chance. A murmur spread through the room. General Steele's eyes narrowed. So what you're saying is, they're testing us. Graves nodded. Exactly. They expect us to surrender out of fear. They think we're just another weak, isolated species. She looked directly into the eyes of every leader present. They don't know what humans are capable of. Humanity's answer, one word that changed everything. Open a channel to the Voral Dominion's flagship, General Steele ordered. The alien leader's glowing violet eyes flickered onto the screen, filled with amused expectation. Ah, humans, I assume you have made the wise decision to. No. Silence. The alien's mandibles twitched. Perhaps our translation is malfunctioning. Surely you meant to say no. General Steele's voice was calm, firm, absolute. We do not surrender. We do not pay tribute. We do not kneel. The Voral commander stared in stunned silence. Dr. Graves smirked. What's wrong? Not used to hearing that. For the first time, uncertainty crept into the alien's expression. The entire galaxy had bent before them, but humanity stood defiant. And for the first time in the Voral Dominion's history, they began to wonder if they had just made the biggest mistake of their existence. Humanity's defiance unleashed. The Voral commander, still displayed on the main screen in Earth Defense Command, EDC, sat in stunned silence. His 6 violet eyes flickered, mandibles twitching with restrained fury. He had conquered countless species, subjugated entire star systems, and crushed planetary resistance with a mere display of superior technology. Yet here he was facing a species that dared to say no. General Marcus Steele stood firm, arms crossed behind his back, his steel-gray eyes unyielding. Every officer in the room was silent, waiting, watching. You misunderstand the situation, humans, the Voral commander finally said, his voice laced with thinly veiled contempt. You are outmatched, outgunned, and outnumbered. Your bravado will only lead to suffering. General Steele tilted his head slightly, considering his response before speaking. We understand the situation perfectly, Commander. His voice was calm, unwavering. You came here expecting immediate compliance, intimidation tactics, and unconditional surrender. What you fail to realize is that humanity doesn't break. Silence. The alien commander's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sure sign of irritation. So be it then, humans. We offered you the chance to serve. Instead, you have chosen extinction. The transmission cut off, leaving the command center bathed in a moment of eerie quiet. Then came the words they had all been waiting for. Sir, the Voral fleet is mobilizing. A fight decades in the making. Colonel Adam Reeves, second in command of Earth's classified planetary defense network, turned to Dr. Elena Graves, the xenobiologist who had called the Voral's bluff. You were right, Doctor. They can't let this stand. They need to make an example of us. Dr. Graves nodded, her sharp blue eyes scanning the fleet trajectories on her holo display. They're moving into a standard orbital bombardment formation. Steele sighed. Predictable. They're used to enemies who lack countermeasures. They think we have no real defenses, Reeves muttered. They have no idea what's about to hit them. Steele turned to Sarah Voss, the chief tactical officer. Activate the veil. She didn't hesitate. Her fingers danced over her console, sending encrypted signals across the entire planetary defense network. Above Earth, something impossible happened. For a moment, the stars seemed to shimmer, then vanished entirely. The Voral fleet, previously locked in aggressive formation, suddenly found every single one of their targeting systems blinded. Their sensors no longer detected Earth. Their instruments saw nothing but empty space. Confusion spread like wildfire among their ranks. The Cloak of Shadows. Deep within a classified black site facility on Europa, Earth's top cyber warfare specialists watched as the Voral panicked. Dr. Hannah Cade, lead scientist behind Earth's Quantum Veil project, smirked as the data poured in. "They just lost everything," she mused, adjusting the holoscreens displaying hacked Voral communications. "Their weapons are offline. Their targeting computers are cycling through failure states. Their fleet commanders are screaming at each other." She turned to her assistant, Lieutenant Darren Cho, who was just as amazed. "They'd never seen anything like this before, have they?" Cho asked. Cade shook her head. "Nope. The quantum veil disrupts their entire system. Their ships rely on hyper-advanced but outdated scanning technology. We don't just cloak from their eyes. We make them believe we aren't even here." Cho grinned. "So what do we do now?" Cade leaned forward. "Now we show them why Earth isn't just another conquest." She activated Phase 2. Counterstrike. Humanity's hidden strength. Back at EDC, Steele observed the tactical holograms, watching the Voral fleet's growing confusion. Then he turned to Voss. "Deploy the Black Fleet." A hum of anticipation rippled through the command center. Far above Earth, something stirred within the darkness. From hidden hangars buried inside asteroids, from cloaked stations beyond the Kuiper Belt, from the depths of the moon's underground shipyards, ships emerged, sleek, black, and faster than anything the Voral had ever encountered. The Black Fleet, a ghost armada, unseen and undetected until now. Their engines operated on gravitic pulses, allowing them to move without heat signatures. Their weapons weren't energy-based like those of the Voral, but instead used quantum disruption technology, capable of bypassing traditional shielding systems. And worst of all, the Voral had no idea they were there. "The ambush begins." "Black Fleet in position, sir," Voss confirmed, eyes locked on her screens. Steele smiled. "Fire at will." The Voral learned fear. The first strike was devastating. Without warning, hundreds of Voral ships detonated simultaneously. They didn't know what hit them. Their defensive shields, designed to counter traditional energy weapons, failed instantly. Their massive, hulking warships, once symbols of galactic domination, were being torn apart as if made of paper. On the Voral flagship, the commander watched in horror as his fleet was systematically annihilated. "What is happening?" he bellowed, slamming his clawed hand against his console. "Where is the enemy fire coming from?" His crew couldn't answer. The Black Fleet didn't appear on their sensors. Their ships weren't visible to the naked eye. The Voral weren't fighting an enemy they could see. They were being hunted by an invisible predator. And one by one, their ships fell into silence. The last mistake. Back in EDC, Steele gave the final order. "Send them a message." A single encrypted transmission was sent to the Voral flagship. The alien commander, shaking with barely contained rage, opened the message. It contained only 3 words. "Your move now." The Voral had expected total domination. Instead, they found themselves on the losing side of a war they never even got to start. For the first time in their empire's history, they were the ones being hunted. And for the first time, they felt something utterly foreign. Fear. The unseen hunters of Earth. The Galactic Council watches in fear. Light years away from the unfolding battle, in the grand chambers of the Galactic Council, the most ancient and powerful civilizations of the known universe watched the live data streams in stunned horror. They had convened to witness the fall of Earth, to observe the Voral Dominion's latest conquest, a display of power meant to reaffirm their place as the supreme rulers of the stars. Instead, they saw something none of them could comprehend. A silent slaughter. The Voral fleet, one of the largest and most feared armadas in the known galaxy, was being annihilated by a species that had only recently achieved interstellar travel, by an enemy that should have been helpless against the might of the Voral war machine. And yet, here they were, watching in silence as the seemingly primitive humans tore through the invaders with an efficiency that defied reason. Councillor Frexquan of the Eldari sovereignty, a race that had stood for over 400,000 years, watched the data streams flicker across the holotable. His usually serene expression was shattered, his twin hearts pounding in disbelief. This is impossible. Beside him, the representative of the Seraphim Collective, a crystalline entity composed of pure quantum energy, pulsed with agitation. The Voral are the galaxy's most ruthless conquerors. They have never lost a planetary campaign. Councillor Vorthadrel, an elder of the Chari Empire, exhaled slowly. They never fought humans before. A deep, uneasy silence settled over the chamber. The balance of galactic power was shifting before their eyes, and no one knew what would come next. The Voral realized their mistake. On board the Voral flagship, Commander Xal Zareth was no longer the confident, imposing figure he had been just hours earlier. He had arrived in Earth's orbit expecting a quick and decisive victory. Now, his fleet was burning, his warships disappearing from existence, one by one. Their shields failed to stop the human attacks. Their weapons couldn't find a target. Their sensors saw nothing. They weren't fighting a traditional battle. They were being hunted, and the hunters were invisible ghosts that struck without warning and vanished into the void. A crew member, his scales glistening with sweat, turned from his console, voice shaking. "Commander, we still cannot detect them. Every shot fired is wasted. Our sensors show nothing." Xal Zareth slammed a clawed fist against the console, then guessed their location and fire everything. The bridge erupted in chaotic motion, Voral gunners desperately firing into empty space, trying to hit foes they couldn't see. But it was futile. The Black Fleet was already moving, shifting faster than Voral targeting systems could calculate, weaving through the wreckage of their fallen ships like wraiths among the stars. Earth's hunters strike back. Inside the UEF Revenant, one of the Black Fleet's capital ships, Captain Adrian Holt watched the battlefield unfold on his tactical display. "They're panicking," his first officer noted, watching as Voral warships fired blindly into the darkness. Holt smirked. "Good. Let them waste their ammunition." He turned to his weapons officer. "Fire control, target the lead destroyer. Zero in on their power core." A confirmation signal flashed across the screens. "Firing solution locked." Holt took a deep breath. Fire. There was no flash of energy, no massive explosion of plasma cannons, just a silent ripple in space, barely noticeable to the untrained eye. Then, a Voral destroyer, the size of a city, shuddered violently. A hole appeared in its center, an unnatural void, where matter simply ceased to exist. A moment later, the ship folded inward, its entire structure collapsing into nothingness, as if it had been erased from reality itself. The Voral had no idea what just happened. To them, it was as if one of their largest warships had simply vanished. Across the battlefield, the Black Fleet executed their coordinated assault, striking at weak points in the Voral formation, exploiting their confusion, their panic, their desperation. Within minutes, another dozen Voral ships were gone, not destroyed, erased. The fleet that had once blocked out the stars was now reduced to a scattering of desperate survivors. The ultimatum. In Earth Defense Command, General Marcus Steele stood with his arms folded, watching the battle unfold. "They're broken, sir," Colonel Reeves said. "The Voral fleet is in full retreat." A brief silence. Steele nodded once. "Send them a transmission." The holoscreen flickered, revealing the battered and shaken form of Commander Xal Zareth. His once proud uniform was torn, his once cold and commanding expression now reduced to raw terror. "Commander Xal Zareth," Steele said, his voice calm and unyielding. The alien looked at him, eyes burning with disbelief and humiliation. "How?" Zal-Zareth rasped, his voice hoarse. "How did you? This is not possible." Steele stared at him, expression unreadable. "You never understood us, Commander. You never even tried." He leaned forward slightly. "You thought we were just another conquest, another primitive race to subjugate." Steele's voice hardened. "But we are not like the others you've crushed. We are not prey. We are not your servants." A long pause. "We are humanity." Another silence passed between them. Then Steele gave the final order. "Your fleet is finished. Your empire, it's next. You will leave this system immediately. If you ever return, we will not just fight you, we will erase you from existence." Zal-Zareth trembled with barely controlled rage, but he knew the truth. The Vorl had lost, and humanity had just proven itself the most dangerous force in the galaxy. Slowly, the remnants of the Vorl fleet turned and fled, vanishing into the darkness of space, and Earth stood victorious. For the first time in history, the hunters had become the hunted. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The reckoning of the Vorl, the flight of the broken fleet. The once mighty Vorl Dominion fleet, feared across thousands of star systems, now limped away from Earth's orbit, broken and humiliated. Hundreds of their once massive warships had been erased from existence, torn apart by weapons they couldn't understand, from ships they couldn't detect. Their mighty capital ships, which had once laid waste to entire civilizations, now fled in disgrace, leaving behind only debris and silence. On the Vorl flagship, Commander Zal-Zareth gripped the edges of his command console so tightly that his claws dug into the metal. His body shook with fury, with disbelief, with fear. This isn't possible," he whispered to himself. For the first time in his existence, he had tasted something no Vorl had ever felt before. Defeat. But even worse than the defeat itself was the knowledge that the humans had let them live. They had been spared, not out of mercy, but as a warning. A warning that Earth was not like the other species they had conquered. That humanity would not just fight back, but would erase them if they ever returned. A shiver ran through his exoskeletal spine. For the first time in Vorl history, they had become prey. The Galactic Council convenes. Far from Earth, in the center of the known universe, the Galactic Council chamber was in chaos. The greatest powers of the galaxy, ancient empires, immortal beings, AI collectives, had gathered to witness the Vorl humiliate and enslave humanity. Instead, they had watched the Vorl flee in terror. For the first time in thousands of years, the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted, and no one knew what would come next. Councillor Threxquan, a member of the Eldari sovereignty, stood before the assembled races, his long, serpentine body coiled in agitation. "We must discuss what has transpired," he said, his voice echoing across the chamber. "The humans have done the impossible. They have defeated the Vorl." His words sent a ripple of shock through the council. Councillor Vorthadrel, an elder of the Chari Empire, leaned forward. They didn't just defeat them. She turned her 3 golden eyes toward the others. They dismantled them. A tense silence followed. Finally, DeepMind, the AI representative of the Eternal Machine Collective, spoke. Its voice was an unsettling monotone. "Humans have developed technologies that surpass our understanding. They have broken every expectation we had of their species." It paused. "And they have done so in complete secrecy." The implications were terrifying. For years, the Galactic Council had believed humans were behind in technology, that their advancements were stolen or accidental. But if humanity had managed to hide their true power for this long, what else had they been keeping secret? A wave of unease spread through the council. "They are no longer an emerging species," Threxquan admitted reluctantly. "They are now a power." The words hung in the air like a storm cloud. Humanity, the species they had mocked and dismissed, had just forced the greatest conquerors in the galaxy into retreat. And now, they had to decide what to do about it. The fracturing of the galaxy. In the days following the battle, the news of Earth's victory spread like wildfire. Across hundreds of star systems, the younger races, those long oppressed by the elder species, watched in awe. For centuries, they had been told that resistance against the great powers was futile, that the Voral and the Galactic Council controlled everything. But now, they had seen something no one thought possible. Humanity had stood up to the greatest empire in the galaxy, and won. And suddenly, they began to ask themselves dangerous questions. What if the Council wasn't as powerful as they claimed? What if the Voral weren't as unstoppable as they seemed? What if humanity wasn't the exception, but the beginning of something new? Across dozens of star systems, rebellions began to stir. The old order was breaking, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The Voral's desperate plan. Inside the Voral Imperial war chambers, the ruling class of the Voral Dominion sat in absolute silence. They had never lost a battle. They had never been forced to retreat. And now, they faced a reality they could not comprehend. The Emperor of the Voral, a being so ancient and feared that his name was only spoken in whispers, sat upon his throne of living metal, his deep, resonant voice filling the chamber. This cannot be allowed to stand. His eyes, dark and pitiless, scanned his warlords. We must erase Earth from existence. A murmur spread through the chamber. We must do more than just conquer them, one of the generals hissed. We must make an example of them. We must burn their world and scatter their ashes into the void. The Emperor's mandibles twitched in approval. Then we will call upon our last resort. A hush fell over the room. The *** only time the Voral had ever used their last resort was to annihilate an entire solar system in a single strike. It was not a weapon of war. It was a weapon of extinction. Prepare the dark harvest, the Emperor commanded. We will not just defeat Earth. We will erase their very existence from the universe. Earth prepares for the endgame. Back on Earth, in the underground command center of the United Earth Defense Network, General Marcus Steele stood before a massive holomap of the galaxy. The Voral won't accept this loss, Colonel Reeves said grimly. Steele nodded. They'll be back. And next time, they won't come to conquer. They'll come to exterminate. Dr. Elena Graves, the scientist who had predicted the Voral's weaknesses, exhaled. Then we have no choice. We have to prepare for total war. Steele turned to his officers. How long until the Dark Fleet is fully operational? His chief of intelligence, Director Hannah Cade, responded. We have weeks. Maybe less. Steele's jaw tightened. Then we use every second we have. He looked at the assembled commanders, scientists, and strategists. From this moment forward, humanity is at war with the Voral. A heavy silence filled the room. Then Steele spoke the words that would change history forever. And we do not lose wars.